remember days full of restlessness and fury. I remember nights that were drunk on dreams. I remember someone who hungered for the glory. I remember her, but it seems she's gone. Where's the girl? Where's the girl with the blaze in her eyes? Where's the girl with the gaze of surprise? Now and then I still dream she's beside me. Where's the girl who could turn on the edge of a knife? Where's the girl who was burning for life? I can still feel her breathing beside me. And I know she remembers how fearless it feels to take off with the wind at your heels. She and I took this world like a storm. Come again, let the girl in your heart tumble free. Bring your renegade heart home to me. In the dark of the morning I'll warm you, I'll rouse you.
Hello and welcome to Broadway Radio's This Week on Broadway for Sunday, July 11th. 2021. My name is James Marino, and in the broadcast today we have Peter Felicia and Michael Portantiere. Peter's a playwright, journalist, and historian with a number of books. His columns appear at Masterworks Broadway, Broadway Select, and many other places. Hello, Peter.
Hello.
Hello. Also with us is Michael Portantiere. Michael is a theater reviewer and essayist. He's the founder and editor of CastAlbumReviews.com. He is also a theatrical photographer whose photos have appeared in the New York Times and other major publications. You can see his photography work at followspotphoto.com. Hello, Michael.
Hello.
Hello. Also with us is a very special guest. William Michaels is joining us. Broadway fans know William from his appearances on Broadway and Beauty and the Beast, South Pacific, Bright Star. He's been doing touring productions of Les Miserables, The Scarlet Pimpernel, and most recently, My Fair Lady. And we're going to talk about that, William, in a second, aren't we?
Good morning. We will indeed.
So thank you for getting up on a Sunday morning and chatting with us. When last you were performing, was it the last you were performing? You were out on the road with My Fair Lady, doing the Lincoln Center production of it. And was that the last thing that you did before the shutdown?
Yeah, in fact, we were in Columbus, Ohio. We opened to sold-out run, standing ovations, great opening night in Columbus, and the next morning we were closed. That's what happened in March of last year, alas. So, we were in limbo for a few days as everything kind of shook down, and we were home by the end of the week.
Let's flash forward to this upcoming September. What's going to happen now?
Woohoo! My Fair Lady reopens down in Houston. So on September 2nd, we fly down, and pretty condensed rehearsal period to get a production up and running.
Rehearsing in Texas or rehearsing?
Yeah, rehearsing down there in Texas for a while. And then then the tour picks up. We were one of the lucky ones. Our tour dates have kind of just leapfrogged and kind of added on and as they got canceled, the presenters have wanted to keep us going because it's an amazing production, great show. In fact, we'll be at the Dolby in Los Angeles for pretty much the month of October, and then at the Orpheum in San Francisco for November, and it's going to keep on plugging away. So it's a wonderful gift. Beautiful
Do you have
production.
Do you have any idea if the same cast is returning, or is it a mix and match, or do you have any clue?
To my knowledge, the cast is pretty much intact. I think that's true for all the principals. I'm not sure for the remainder of the company.
Who were the principals when you stopped?
Well, I mean, Shireen Ahmed is a amazing Eliza Doolittle, and she will be returning, It's gosh, I can go through everybody, but let's just say that she is luminous, and she performed the role in New York. So from there on down, as far as I consider, we've got the most beautiful cast on the road or of the show.
What did My Fair Lady mean to you before this happened? Was it a property you were tremendously familiar with through the movie? Had you ever done it before, here, there, or anywhere?
No, I shouldn't say that. Silly. In fact, the second production at the Paper Mill Playhouse, I was a member of the Cockney Quartet way back when. I think Robert Johansson directed Teddy, and
probably.
Sure. Yeah, probably back then. That was the early 90s. Paper Mill Playhouse was a force to be reckoned with. And yes, that season, My Fair Lady and the Yeston Cuppet Phantom. Remember those days. So I hadn't thought about it very much. I suppose we actors really focus on the shows where we feel that there's something particular for us. I mean, I've always loved the property and the all the music from it, but now I had a chance to perform as understudy as Doolittle at the Kennedy Center, and it's funny how some things just fit. It was Bart Sher gives us all sorts of leeway to be ourselves and to create. And I wouldn't necessarily have thought of myself as a Doolittle, but it fits. And what fun.
Yeah, I remember Harvey Evans telling me that when he was an understudy in Barnum for Jim Dale, that just naturally when they would pass each other in the hall, he'd say, "How are you?" And then realize that there were more implications when you say, "How are you?" to a star, because, but you're essentially saying, "Are you too sick to go on? Am I going to go on tonight?" Have you ever had experiences much like that?
I've been a standby. I've been understudy for in many productions, and I've of course been, understudied in many roles. It's once you've done it, obviously you have the sympathy and empathy for the actors that are understudying you. Even so, there are times when there's that oddness, when their family's in from out of town, and somebody says, "Hey, you want to take Saturday matinee off by chance?" And it depends upon the situation. There are opportunities where that is possible. In fact, my first performance in South Pacific was just after the Tony voting had happened, and I was standing by for Emile Debec. Then right after the Tony voting ended and the pressure was off, the lovely Paolo Schott found an afternoon where it actually turned out to be a weekend where he needed to rest, and things worked out.
I was
nicely.
Lucky enough to see you in it. How many Nellies did you play opposite?
I think 4 or 5.
Wow.
Of course, Kelly O'Hara's that was my first Nellie there at Lincoln Center, and then many performances once I took over the role with Laura Osnes, who was just the epitome of poise and beauty and talent, just a joy to share the stage with her. So with so many performances, so that was just a glorious production and a dream. That was 2.5 years that we ran. That was associated with the production, and it was a joy, beginning to end. Listening to that orchestra, listening to that overture, those strains of Valley High. In fact, as when they came back, if you remember, the orchestra or the stage withdrew. It rolled back and revealed the
Yes.
orchestra, and the sound washed over the house, and never failed to be spine tingling. And even I'm a sap. It brought tears to my eyes often. It's just, we had a 35 or 40 piece orchestra. It was glorious.
Mm.
So what have you done between your downtime when you had your last performance in Ohio and now to keep the voice in proper order? Well,
I've enjoyed my time off, to be honest with you. It's I sing a lot of concerts and performances and such, and I've been lucky over the course. I and my family have been lucky health wise, and I've taken a number of trips out to California to visit my mom. We had just moved her out there just before COVID hit. To Palo Alto. My sister lives down the street there in Stanford. And, I've taken trips out and gone to the national parks. And it's been a kind of cathartic year for me.
What makes a good concert? What have you learned by doing these concerts? That there are things that should be done, shouldn't be done. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I remember. In fact, James and I worked on this way back in 2001 when I was doing Beauty and the Beast at the time. And we were formulating what was the germ of the seed for my concerts, my solo concerts, William Michaels Broadway in Concert, kind of imaginatively named. And at the time there was there was Sondheim and more less mainstream or familiar big hit type numbers. And for me, in the kind of classic voice category, I have found, as we were talking before, that the hits like Some Enchanted Evening and If Ever I Would Leave You, The Impossible Dream, those are great, recognizable, and kind of reverberant songs for a reason. They're classics because they're great works of art. And those are always an anchor for me in my concerts, for instance. Those songs are songs similar to that. And then there's, you can bring in some unknown pieces, some new compositions, maybe some kind of funny up-tempos, specialty numbers. But I have learned over the years that for the satisfying experience, both for me and the audience, that we get the highest quality pieces, and we all leave satisfied. And by the way, if you guys hear some noises in the background, it's the New York City Triathlon going right by.
Are you running it as you?
Yes.
Are you running it?
I am.
Yes,
and
it's
so
very
I'm working on
impressive.
my breath control, and I'm not even out of breath.
Speaking of famous numbers, the specific impetus for asking William to join us today was that I just saw him on stage at Feinstein's 54 Below in Scott Siegel's evening celebrating July 4th. And among other things, William performed 76 trombones, which was certainly appropriate.
Oh, right. Yeah. Americana. And the program rounded out with America the Beautiful. It was, I love the red, white, and blue. I won't get into politics right now, but I have not one whit ever wavered from loving patriotic programs and materials and such. And when we're working with great musicals like Music Man and Oklahoma, and it's just great repertoire that really speaks Americana. It's a great way to celebrate the holiday.
Where are you from originally?
Exotic New Jersey.
What town exactly?
Grew up in Cranford, and Spring Lake was kind of a family home, and I get down there to get down to the beach, get down the shore frequently still. I wanted to say that rejoining the company, My Fair Lady, is going to be such a joy, because I just haven't seen all these folks in a long time. We've had meetings in the course of this year. It's been a very tumultuous year in terms of society, politics, and health, and a lot of issues that we've been that have kept our company in touch in meetings, and we've grown even though we've been at a distance. We have grown closer, and the connections and the way that we're going to interact is probably going to be improved and more meaningful as we've discussed issues of race and politics and just all the issues that have really bubbled to the surface this past year. And I think that the theater community and compositions and the directions for directors are going to take is really going to be informed, as well as the perspective of audiences. So when I see Shireen, it's Laird McIntosh playing Henry Higgins, he's coming back, and Adam Grupper is Doolittle, and Leslie Alexander and Mrs. Higgins, and Kevin, of course, is Pickering, and it just the whole cast is we're going to be telling the story with new eyes, I think, in a way. And Shireen is a woman of color, and as things that we hadn't thought about as much when the show was opening, all of a sudden reverberate, and just I'm looking forward to being on stage and telling the story again with all the great company members and singing the great music, and telling the story through Bart's eyes.
This popped into my head. Do you guys remember how Archie Bunker on All in the Family used to misquote things all the time?
Yeah.
And do you remember what he called that famous song from My Fair Lady?
No, what?
I've grown accustomed to first base.
Which brings us up to William's dating life. No.
Goodness me. My
Good
kids
luck.
are 22 and 24. I think I've proceeded past first base. And that's about the extent of my sports referencing, though. Just so you know.
All right.
okay.
But Cranford has a great community theater. Did you go there as a kid? Did you perform there? Is that where you got your interest in theater?
Oh, well, that's so nice. Yes, it's true. They do. I have not done any theater in Cranford. My summers were all spent down in Spring Lake, and there's a precious jewel box of a
There
theater
sure
down
is.
there.
Yeah.
The Spring Lake Community Playhouse, and I got to give a shout out to Pat Barry, who was running the joint way back then and is still there. I just poked my head in the other day. They're doing a production of Anything Goes. If for those able to get down to the shore, it's exit 98 off the Parkway and head over there. But it's a beautiful town, and it's such a safe. And it was a safe place to work back then. And I think I spent 6 summers altogether. In fact, isn't it funny? When I was 16, I did Emil DeBeck in South Pacific.
Look at that.
And it was, and it was actually 25 years between then and the Lincoln Center production. I hadn't actually done another production of it since then. But
Well, by
It's
16,
nice.
by 16 you had this booming voice, I guess. But who was the one who said, "William, you have such an interesting and wonderful mellifluous voice, speaking voice. Um, can you sing? Do you sing? Would you like to sing? How did all that start?"
A guy named Peter Phil. I like the way you put it there. Thank you very much. In my family, my dad, Bill Michaels, and William Jr., he had a gorgeous baritone voice. He used it as an attorney.
Ah,
His brother Raymond Michalski. My dad was born William Michalski. My uncle Ray sang at the Met, and he was a supporting bass. He died too young, unfortunately, but he had a great career there at the Met. But my grandfather, Grandpa Michalski, and his brother Ed, everybody were basses and baritones. So genetically, it's interesting. The actual timbre of the voice is passed down. My son, he's not a singer, but in his speaking voice, he's got a good, strong baritone. And after doing all state choir and the musicals and such, I went to Boston University and studied opera on the side. International relations was the major, believe it or not. And then after a couple of years of floating about after college, decided that this is kind of what I love to do most, do the best. I don't do anything else nearly as well. And voila, there was a career. So, the voice.
I don't think we've actually had you as a guest on the podcast before, but I was Googling our past shows and I came up from one from 2012 titled "We Love William Michaels." And it was all about you in Sweeney Todd at the Pennsylvania Shakespeare Festival, which both Peter and I had seen and raved about. And then I just looked up a review. It's so interesting. Peter and I agreed that your look in that show was incredible, and it sort of reminded us of Riff Raff in Rocky Horror. But I just looked up this review by George Hatza in the Reading Eagle.
I know George, yeah.
And he wrote, with his piercing eyes and long, stringy, graying hair, Michael's Sweeney suggests Vlad the Impaler more than a Victorian barber donning the traditional Sweeney wig so often worn by actors in this ferociously demanding role. He seduces his prey as a vampire would, cajoling them into a luxurious relaxation before slitting their throats on his specially designed barber's chair and providing Mrs. Lovett with the meat necessary for her suddenly popular pies. And I also found, we will put it in the show notes, a link to a video that you did of you preparing for the role, being made up and getting into the wig, and that's really fun to watch.
Oh yeah, my God, that was a great production, and a great role, of course, to perform. And I know I had fabulous hair. Lisa Zinni did the costume design, and she had a kind of steampunk look to the whole production.
Yes.
And which carried, I thought, carried very well. It's certainly, a lot of fun. I mean, how can you not have fun playing Sweeney? It's it's nice that a lot of the baritone repertoire is you get dads and more mature characters, and not often the ingenues who are baritones or bass baritones, as much as roles that I'll have a chance to play again and again.
Right. Yeah. So you had a performance last night at 54 Below with you and a handful of people were performing some of Broadway's greatest hits. Who else was there with you?
Well, one of the Scott Siegel puts together a great cast of folks, and Leanne Marie Dobbs and I have concertized together and she and I duetted on Where or When, great Rodgers and Hart number. And she and I, where did we do our whole concert together? In St. Louis. So she's one of my favorites. And Ron Abel was on the piano. He was the music director for the night.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, I mean, certainly amazing talent, and great collaborators. John Easterlin, a Metropolitan Opera tenor as well. He joined the company singing some classic. He ended with Climb Every Mountain from...
That's a whole different song.
Baritone joke, sorry.
And it better not be with someone 16 going on 17.
Yes.
Well, I must have done something good. And some rising stars and such. Scott puts together a great program, so they're always satisfying, and nice. There's variety of talent and repertoire.
Actually, there was a wonderful full circle kind of a thing in the July 4th show that I saw, because my friends, the Drinkwater brothers, Matt and John, were in it, and they apparently had seen Beauty and the Beast multiple times over the years. And so they I was speaking to their mom, and she's been looking for the playbills, and she hasn't found all of them, because I think literally there are 30 or more. And she's not 100% sure, but it's very likely that they saw William either as Gaston or as the Beast. And
it's kind of hard to tell it when you're the Beast. I mean, sorry, but
exactly.
You get a lot of FaceTime, so to speak. It's interesting, though. James and I, when we were developing my solo concert, which now I've done all over the country, from my mom's community in just last month. Now that we're able to perform again to larger venues around the country, it was right around 9/11 that I was playing Gaston on Broadway, and of course that happened on a Tuesday morning, and our first scheduled performance of William Michaels in concert was the following Saturday, the 15th. And James and I decided, like the rest of the New York theater community, we Beauty and the Beast was up and running again. I already had the night off to do, for this concert engagement at Cammie Hall, the old Cammie Hall on 57th Street.
Which is no longer there, right?
No.
Right. It's I don't know if the hall exists anymore, if it's been repurposed, but it's definitely not in use.
Right.
It's a performance venue, but there we were Saturday night, and we made it happen. That was the feeling back then, that we were going to get up on our feet, and we as a family decided that that's what we needed to do back then. So I want to say it's been such an interesting and different perspective this time around. The same type of feel of like a blow to the community to not perform with COVID. We, of course, performing in large venues in a pandemic, we were hit earliest. We had to shut down. But as opposed to kind of being the vanguard and stepping up and being the first type of activity to come back, we're like the last, just by nature of things. So we, after 9/11, we were back up performing on 9/13/2001, on Thursday night on Broadway. And here we are a year and a half later, just getting back on our feet again. So it's been a difficult experience for a lot of people in the biz, and I'm sorry to say that some people I know have kind of had to move on to different work.
Sure.
They've moved out of the city. A lot of the young artists, in fact, they had to go back home to wherever that may be. And let's hope they come back, because we need to reinvigorate things. So I really appreciate you guys keeping these podcasts going and keeping the word out there and covering and attending performances at 54 Below and wherever. Thank you very much.
You have William Michaels Broadway in Concert trademark coming up in August in New Jersey. Tell us more about this date.
Well, I am hoping that Ron Abel will be the pianist and the music director on it. And Leanne Marie Dobbs may actually join me on it as well. As communities and as venues are putting their programs back together again, I'm going to be up in Wanacue, New Jersey. And you can look for information at williammichaels.com for it. But in fact, this is going to be a 90-minute program of Broadway standards, romantic showstoppers, and certainly things from roles that I've done in Chicago and South Pacific, Man of La Mancha, Camelot, a lot of Lerner and Lowe, Rodgers and Hammerstein. That's my wheelhouse for sure. I knew how to write them for the voice, and Beauty and the Beast, and a whole slew of stuff. So that's the core of my concert, with some funny numbers, give flavor, maybe a little Neapolitan song. I've got an interesting kind of crossover background, and I like to bring that to the fore. That's what we do.
You're heading after your August concert, heading down to Houston to do My Fair Lady for a bit of time. What's life like on the road? It's very different than doing a Broadway production where you kind of live in New York City and do your show 8 times a week. What are you doing on the road?
Wow, this has been very interesting for me. I hadn't been on the road touring per se since 2001. In fact, the summer that with the Scarlet Pimpernel. So when Bart offered me a position of this, I said, let's try this again. And so the interesting aspect was and is that I kind of gave up my New York area address and said, okay, I'm going to be an actual gypsy for a while. And it means downsizing your luggage, jettisoning baggage and and simplifying your life in a way and enjoying the experience, enjoying going to, the Prince's Museum in Minnesota or what, his studios. Forget the name of it now, and just doing things in each city. It's a different experience touring as a with a lifetime experience behind me, and appreciating what a city has to offer. Because sometimes a tour can be, you wake up in the hotel right next to the theater, you walk across the street to the stage door, and you don't really see much, but I have resolved to enjoy each city, and I really enjoy being on the West Coast. I spent a lot of time in California over this long break, so both Northern and Southern California are going to be a lot of fun to explore. And it can be a schlep. I mean, it is a schlep, but audiences and getting a different feel for each audience is also very interesting. Bart Scher's production of My Fair Lady has some, has a lot of life, a lot of color, a lot of flavor, a lot of things that to our eyes are pretty, benign. But then you get some odd reviewers and perspectives on the road. It's very interesting connecting with the audiences all around the country. They love it though. I mean, we've been blessed. It's been been a great hit. So it's certainly easier to be on the road with a
hit than with a flop.
Joy.
Well, William, I want to thank you so much for joining us on Broadway Radio. It's great to talk with you. Please, very interested to see how life is different on the road when you're out there doing My Fair Lady. So stay in touch with us, and hopefully we'll have you back on soon.
Yeah, great to reconnect with you guys and with everybody out there. Getting people into the seats, reminding them about the magic of live theater in general. Also, the particular allure and it really just touches our souls to hear these songs and the music. They create memories for us, and they inspire and take us away, and whatever is needed. It's really magic pill. So thank you for keeping it alive, guys, helping to spread the word.
This Week on Broadway is being brought to you by ExpressVPN. Most people don't understand the implications of privacy on the internet. If you want to see it for yourself, go to Google, Facebook, or Amazon and search for something you would never search for, say, ranch-flavored Doritos. I bet you that over the next week, you will see advertisements for ranch-flavored Doritos on all different websites. How do they know that? But they won't know it if you're using ExpressVPN. Using the internet without ExpressVPN is like taking a call on a train or a bus on speakerphone for everyone to hear. Don't be that person. So why does everybody need ExpressVPN? An internet service provider like Comcast or Verizon know every single website you visit. And then ISPs turn around and can sell this information to ad companies and tech giants who can use your data to target you. ExpressVPN creates a secure and encrypted tunnel between your device and the internet so people can't peep on your online activity. So fire up the app, click one button, and you're connected. It's rated #1 by CNET, Wired, and The Verge. It works on phones, laptops, even routers, so everyone who shares your Wi-Fi can be protected. I don't want my proclivity for ranch-flavored Doritos known to everyone else, and neither should you. ExpressVPN is easy and fast, and it protects me. So secure your online activity by visiting expressvpn.com/BroadwayRadio today. That's expressvpn.com/BroadwayRadio, and you can get an extra 3 months free. expressvpn.com/BroadwayRadio. We'd like to thank ExpressVPN for continuing to sponsor Broadway Radio. So, Peter, you got over to the Actors Temple to see a new twist, a new production of The Importance of Being Earnest. Tell us about it.
Yes, it's The Importance of Being Earnestly, as Richard Henry Lee would say, with the initials LGBTQ plus added to it. So what we're dealing with here is a gay version of the play, and as a result, we're talking about gay marriage. So you couldn't really set it back in the time where it originally took place in the Victorian era. So the director, Martin Cornelis, and probably some other people too, decided that they would change it to New York City and New York upstate, because you may recall that there's town and country issues in this play. So that doesn't quite work, because one of the big things about Ernest, a masterpiece of a play, needless to say, is that it deals with class distinctions. And while those are so terribly important in Victorian England, they're not as important here. So to hear Lady Bracknell rail about the fact that about the poor gentleman's birthright and whether or not he has parents and where he came from and all that isn't as significant an issue for us as it is for Victorian England, people in Victorian England. So that's a little bit of a problem. But there's a bigger problem with this production, and that is, as you know, the chain is as strong as the weakest link. And there's an extraordinarily weak link in this production, and that's the actress playing Lady Bracknell. Now, most people, when they think of Ernest, they even think of Lady Bracknell first. And yet, it's funny, probably right up there with Phantom of the Opera. This is one of the shortest roles that is very well known because, first off, in the first and third acts, that's the only time that she appears. In the entire second act, she's nowhere to be found. And she makes late entrances in both acts. So that's kind of funky that it really is a play that's known for a really supporting character. But unfortunately, the actress who plays it here has a very, 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 very thick accent. She sounds, I'm not trying to be funny, she sounds a good deal like Bela Lugosi. And as a result, it's very hard to understand her. Now, even if she were quite wonderful, even if she didn't have the accent, the problem is that she does tend to trail off her lines as they continue. So many of these lines are delicious lines that are punch lines, and she doesn't get the punch out of them. Now, of course, a theater review is obsolete the moment it is written, because after all, shows grow and shows can improve. But I will say at the performance I attended, she was very, very unsure of her lines. And that brings us to another issue. And I wonder if indeed, I'm only theorizing here, I'm not saying this is what happened, but ironically enough, the director has added two characters into the play, whom he calls Dancer 1 and Dancer 2, and occasionally they do dance around. But what they also do is appropriate many of Lady Bracknell's lines. So as a result, Lady Bracknell does not have as much to say as she usually does. She is not quite interrupted, but her sentiments are augmented by these two gentlemen. And the fact is that that doesn't really make a lot of sense, because if she's this haughty lady, that's Haughty, if she's this haughty lady, she wouldn't have her assistants say things. She's not the type of person that will allow assistants to make so many comments. She would shut them up. So that's a bit of a problem too. So I mean, if they said anything, I mean, think of Lady Bracknell that you've seen. Do you really believe that she would go for having her assistants come in with things? She would eat them for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and a midnight snack. I mean, it just wouldn't happen. So that's because these guys are, to quote, paraphrase another wild play, these are men of no importance, and she would treat them as such. So that would be a problem as well. I will say I enjoyed one directorial touch that I thought was terrific. Cecil, not Cecily, Cecil, when meeting Algernon, or Algie as he's referred to here more than Algernon, Cecil has a point where he's sitting and he tucks his legs underneath himself. And Algie does the same. And I think that's something that people do when they want to indicate that they're interested in someone, that they mirror the gesture that happens there. So I will say that some over-the-top mugging hurts this, but I just don't see the value in imposing the gay marriage thing on a play that is so rooted in its time and place that I can't see it for this moment in time. So I do hope it improves as time goes on. I wish it well, but I would like to know if indeed those two guys were added, because Lady Bracknell just had such a tough time that they had to add these guys in.
Okay, so that's over at the Actors Temple Theater, and I'll have a link to that in the show notes. Michael, you got over to a movie theater and saw Rita Moreno, Just a Girl Who Decided to Go for It, which is a documentary. So tell us about this.
Well, I'm really glad I saw it. She's quite a fascinating person with an amazing career. Unfortunately, in my opinion, she's supremely talented, but she's not really that good when it comes to making public pronouncements about things. And she seems very confused about a few things and keeps contradicting herself, as far as I can see it, on several subjects, including whether people should only play their own ethnicity when they are playing roles. And also there's discussion of the the character of Gugi Gomez in The Ritz, which she so memorably created on stage and then played in the film as well. That, whether that role is a stereotype or a send-up of a stereotype. Well, I mean, of course it's a send-up, but if you say it's a send-up, does that also mean that it's not also a stereotype? Terrence McNally is one of the many talking heads in the movie, and he describes the part as a loving stereotype. So that's his perspective on it. But yeah, she really seems to be of two minds about her own career, which involved her playing other ethnicities very frequently in the early days of her career. Especially, she would play Native Americans and other ethnicities, as well as occasionally playing some form of Latina. So. And this has gotten her into kind of contradictions where there was an interview recently where she was interviewed with George Chakiris, with whom she played in West Side Story, of course, in the film. And both of them received Best Featured or Best Supporting Actor Oscars for that, by the way, for their brilliant performances in that movie. And here she is going on about how so many of the people in the original film were not actually Puerto Ricans or Latina, and she focused on Natalie Wood, but all the while sitting next to her is George Chakiris, who is Greek and certainly not Puerto Rican. So, I just wish she would. Oh, and then there was another very unfortunate recent incident where she at first defended Lin-Manuel Miranda for the charges of non-representative casting in the film of In the Heights. Lin-Manuel Miranda, by the way, is one of the producers of this documentary about Rita Moreno. So she at first defended him, and as soon as she got some blowback, she walked it back and apologized for having said that. So, gosh, I don't know. I mean, either you believe something or you don't. And I think you should at least stick with it. So that's my feeling on Rita Moreno. But all of that said, I would absolutely try to see the documentary. I saw it on the big screen at the AMC on 42nd Street, but you can certainly download it or stream it through various methods. And there are copious clips in it, by the way, many, many, many clips, which I went to see it with our mutual friend, Kevin McInerney. And he was amazed by that because we all know how much it costs to do that normally. So I'm not sure what kind of deal they worked out with, but there were clips from. One more quick thing. She goes on about how awful it was to play Tuptim in The King and I because the role is so boring and basically so morose and such a doormat and always whining. She didn't use whining, but there was the kind of the idea that she gave. Well, I'm sorry, Tuptim is a very strong character. She stands up to the king at the end, which is unheard of. And she, so I guess she missed all of that, or forgot that aspect of the role. But I just, it seemed unseemly to me for her to be complaining about playing Tuptim in The King and I.
Michael, is there any reference to her doing She Loves Me in London?
There is a quick, there are quick shots of the posters and maybe the cast album. Not a lot of discussion of it, but I think she does make note of that as a case where she was happy to play a role that was not necessarily Latina. Yeah.
All right. So there's also just a little bit of news that came out on Saturday over at Park Avenue Armory that they have a production of Enemy of the People that's been canceled because Ann Dowd has needed to unexpectedly leave the production for a family matter. And that's all they really said about it. Got pretty good reviews. Peter, were you scheduled to see it? Did you see it? Or?
I was scheduled for the 28th, so no, I did not see it.
So, I guess we'll keep our ears open and see what, is said about this. And again, it got good reviews, so it doesn't seem like this is, the type of thing that would be like saving face by closing a production or something like that. It seemed like, and Park Avenue Armory, certainly socially distanced enough as far as the pictures that I saw.
Sure.
Just an enormous space.
Yes.
Amazing that it's there here, right in Manhattan. All right, so that wraps it up for today. Before we get on to trivia and our musical moment, I want to remind everybody that you can subscribe to these broadcasts by going to the front page of broadwayradiocomp12041. There's a subscribe link that way. Each and every time we have a new episode of This Week on Broadway, it can be automatically downloaded to Apple Podcasts for you. Of course, you don't have to listen to us on Apple Podcasts. You can listen to us many different ways. iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Stitcher, Google Play. Basically, anywhere that you can listen to podcasts, you'll be able to find Broadway Radio's offerings. Contact information for Peter, for Michael, and me can be found in the show notes at broadwayradiocomp12041, as well as links to some of the things we've talked about today, including a very nice picture of William Michael and Michael Portantiere. The Michaels.
The Michaels, yeah.
The Michaels.
One with an E, one without.
Yes, exactly. They'll be doing their duo concert together all throughout the United States later this year.
If only.
Yeah. So, Peter, do you have an answer for last week's trivia?
In 1776, John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, and Ben Franklin are shown to be the men who were most responsible for making the United States of America. But there was another award-winning property done a few decades earlier that gives most of the credit to Caesar Rodney of Delaware. What's the name of that property and what award did it win? Well, I'm talking about the winner of the 1938 Best Short Subject two-reel 17-minute film called Declaration of Independence that makes Caesar Rodney of Delaware the greatest hero. By the way, it also resolves the slavery issue, which is the thorniest one in 1776, in a mere 2 lines of dialogue. This shows up on Turner Classic Movies every now and then, so keep an eye out for it. Declaration of Independence is what it's called. Tony Janicki was back in first place, followed by Paul Whitty, Joanna Abizzi, Josh Israel, and Brigadude. Meanwhile, Jack Leshner pointed out that Caesar Rodney's Ride, a children's book by Jan Cheripko, won a Parents' Choice Award in 2004. Well, that's not many decades earlier, but we'll give him credit anyway. So, this week's question. He received a Tony nomination for appearing in what would become a Tony-winning musical. But if you buy the current CD of the original cast album, you'll only hear him do 1 song, although he sang 5 in the show. Who is he? What's the show? What's the explanation?
Okay, if you have an answer for that, email us at trivia@broadwayradio.com. We'll let you know if you're on the right track. So, Michael, not sure what to do here about the musical moment. What are we going to do?
Oh, yeah, I hadn't given it a lot of thought, but it just occurred to me that, well, of course, West Side Story is in the news once again with the imminent release of the new film version. Also, it certainly came up in the Rita Moreno documentary, so I've been thinking about it a lot. And here's an interesting thing. This was not planned because the new film was to have been released, about a year ago?
Mm-hmm.
But now, because of the delay, it's going to open almost 60 years after the original, which the original was released on October 18th, 1961. Mm-hmm. And I guess the new film is coming out around Christmas. Is that true?
Yeah, I think so.
Christmas, yeah.
Well, anyway, all of this got me thinking about it. And as we've discussed recently, back in the day, there were many, many, many cover recordings of songs from Broadway musicals and film versions of them by just about every recording artist who was worth anything at the time. And one of the most beautiful cover recordings from West Side Story that I've ever heard is Andy Williams' recording of Maria that he did on an album that was released, I guess, shortly after the film came out. Because as I think we all know, West Side Story really didn't become a phenomenon until the release of the film. And so, but then it really did, and everyone was recording those songs. So this album actually also contains Andy Williams singing Tonight, which is gorgeous as well. But his version of Maria, I think you'll find to be exceptionally beautiful. And it's certainly, I think it's a beautiful note for us to end this podcast on.
So tangential to that is that I think everybody else has announced when they're coming back except for West Side Story.
Right. Someone online said that an announcement is imminent and that it's reopening in November. I have no idea how much credence to give to that.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Yeah.
All right. So on behalf of Michael Portantiere and Peter Felicia, this is James Marino saying thanks so much for listening to Broadway Radio's This Week on Broadway. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Maria, I've just met a girl named Maria, and suddenly that name will never be the same to me. Maria, I've just kissed a girl named Maria, and suddenly I've found how wonderful a sound can be. Maria, say it loud and there's music playing. Say it soft and it's almost like praying. Maria, I'll never stop saying Maria. And it's almost like praying. Maria, I'll never stop saying Maria.